everyone, the year of 2019 is over and we brace ourselves for a new decade. But we are not quite done yet. After we repelled and overcame the forces of evil that were the worst movies of the year, what better way to end this whole decade of wonderful and blissful memories that I've had over the years than by going over the films that are true angelic works of cinematic fiction. The one that grants you to the golden gates of heaven and extinguish all that is unholy. I refer, of course, to the best movies of 2019. Much like the last video, this list is entirely arranged on my own personal perspectives and thoughts on the films that I saw and have accommodated on how they perfected the film industry, with fascinating storytelling, remarkable characters and performances, and its own technological achievements. Plus, there will be points where some films that you may consider to be one of the best films of the year may not show up on this list. And there are also films that I rated a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 to that didn't almost quite make the cut. Maybe because of the shifting opinions I've had on a couple of those films, or it's because I found 10 more movies on this list that stood out to me the most. But in any case, with what films I do have on this list, I hope you appreciate this list regardless and see what I have in store for you all. So without further elucidations, like an amazing song, it's time to go into the unknown and brace for the best. My name is Luke Nukem, and these are the top 10 best films of 2019.
Why don't you spill your beans?
Sometimes, whenever a director is attempting their secondary directorial project, there comes a point in life where they may enter a sophomore slump, and their vision isn't as prominent or remarkable as they were in their prime. But Jordan Peele overcame all of those odds, as he cracks out the sick, twisted, demented, yet outrageously hysterical horror comedy, Us. Now, I will to some modicum agree on the standard that Us isn't as much of a brilliant breakout as the directorial debut in Get Out. However, that doesn't mean that Jordan Peele didn't unleash his monumental strengths as a horror director with a film that met and exceeded my expectations. It's a movie that, like Get Out, has a simple plot perfected, relatable characters with outstanding performances from the cast, especially from Lupita Nyong'o, as they also portray the tethered versions of themselves. Dark in comedy, viciously satisfying violence, eerie score, and its ending that kept people talking. Will Jordan Peele knock it out of the ballpark yet again with a perpetual third film? Only time will tell, my friends. Only time will tell. We all understand what James Mangold is capable of in the directing department, as he has proven it in westerns like the remake of 310 Yuma and one of the best superhero films of the past decade in Logan. But he ups the ante in a movie that doesn't only deliver as a stupendous racing film that focuses on a bunch of car manufacturers at Ford trying to defeat Ferrari in the 24-hour of Le Mans in 1966, but it also hones in on the concept of handling inner demons and how companies deal with creative control and the rise of ingenious innovation overcoming interference from a corporate and traditionalist model. Something that still happens to this day for other companies, not just the car manufacturing ones. Ford v Ferrari, like a Judas Priest song, is delivering the goods, with Matt Damon and Christian Bale leading the charge with exceptional performances and friendly camaraderie, well-executed dialogue, and who could forget the biggest selling point of those blood-pumping racing sequences with that ferocious editing and sound design. If you haven't seen this movie yet, now's your chance, because Ford v Ferrari is quite the rip-roaring ride. That's right, folks. Occasionally we would get lambasted with horror films that have to do with ghosts, killers, demons, and stalkers that do nothing new except for using every single horror cliche in the book. But I understand that it all has to do with execution, but I have never expected a film, much less a psychological horror film, as Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse, to be this incredible. The Lighthouse has all of the aesthetic and atmosphere that the best horror masterminds could conceive, with tremendous cinematography and its appropriate use of the 4:3 aspect ratio, on-point direction, out-of-this-universe performances from Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, who should have been nominated for an Oscar, but didn't, but that's not going to be the only snub on this list. Symbolism of Greek mythology that is used in the benefit of the story, rather than shoehorning in a theme down the audience's throat, and that ending. I got nothing else to say. You have to see it for yourself, because my word. Jojo Rabbit is one of those comedic satires that only an auspicious director like Taika Waititi would absolutely nail, as he did with What We Do in the Shadows, The Hunt for the Wilder People, and even made a surprising effort in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Thor Ragnarok. It's an absolutely heartwarming and extraordinary film that tackles the aspects of judging people based on who they are, while in the midst of a fundamentally impactful coming-of-age film about a boy conflicted with his own morality, whether he aspires to be like his idolized childhood icon, Adolf Hitler, who is portrayed brilliantly by the director himself, Taika Waititi, or do what's right for a teenage Jewish girl as World War II continues. I couldn't get enough in this movie's hilarious moments that balance the tone between uplifting and dark, and even the charming characters and performances. And most of all, I'm also extremely happy that this movie is getting a lot of love from the Academy, including for getting nominated for Best Picture of all things. Because at the end of the day, Jojo Rabbit is a genius and endearing movie that aims high and hits all the right notes. What? You think I was gonna put a foreign film on here? Well, you, my friends, will be wrong in that assessment. Here's the thing. It's not that I don't want to see foreign films of whatever genre that foreign filmmakers of other countries want to tackle. It's just that it takes a significant chunk of time for me to find a film that appeals to yours truly. I love the Norwegian found footage film Troll Hunter, the relentless Japanese bloodfest of Battle Royale, and the French lighthearted comedy of The Untouchables. But for the Korean black comedy thriller Parasite, it earns every single amount of praise it gets, and then some. Immensely layered characters with performances that pack a punch, crisp, concise editing, precise directing with twists and turns in the script that nobody will see coming. And much like Get Out, it uses social commentary on class smartly without having to overshadow the film's momentum and narrative progression. Parasite is a foreign film like no other, and much like how I addressed one of the best films of 2017 in The Lost City of Z, we just don't get movies like this anymore. Talk about one of the most unjustly reviled and misunderstood movies of the decade, am I right? It's absurd to me that after acclaiming awards like the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival and earning an 8-minute standing ovation at the Toronto International Film Festival, that a movie like this would end up with so much slander and pointless controversy that one day it may inspire violence and mass shootings. But you know what? The fact that more people are bashing on this criminally underappreciated interpretation of the Joker, calling it anything but a child of God, and misconceiving it as a scapegoat for real-world violence, just makes me love the movie even more. While Shazam was the movie that diverted DC films into the right direction, Joker accelerated it in staggering measures. It's captivating and hauntingly unnerving in all of the best ways. Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, aka the Joker, is an unbelievably triumphant turn that might get him an Oscar, which better happen, by the way. Todd Phillips' direction is simply inspired. The cinematography is unsettling in a great sense. The score is wickedly enchanting, and the meticulously effortless story that makes the viewer know what it's like to dive into the mind of a madman. So when all is said and done, Joker was finally the phenomenal DC film of the rebooted era that made me smile and put on a happy face. I normally don't say this about an actor who I used to despise for their previous filmography, particularly their comedies, but I believe, and hear me out, Adam Sandler is one of the most underestimated actors working whenever he is given a dramatic role. And believe me, he deserves far more credit than he is given. So, what if I told you that he's in a role as a greedy, charismatic, money-hungry jeweler trying to make the biggest bet of his life in an apprehensively chaotic crime thriller directed by the Safdie brothers, the duo who beheld the sensational flick and one of the best films of 2017, Good Time? Well, you would get the pulse-pounding knockout, Uncut Gems, as it remains another prime example that the Safdie brothers never disappoint. Masterful white-knuckle direction, the soundtrack scorches the film in gratifying success, and Adam Sandler delivers a career-defining performance of a lifetime. And you know what? I also kind of find it surprising that both Happy Gilmore and Elsa are in a movie together. How bewildering and amazing is that? But hey, it's tense, it's high-octane, it's unpredictable in every conceivable way, and it's one of the best films of the year. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen, never bet against the Safdies. Speaking of Elsa, okay, you guys aren't dumb. You likely knew that this movie was going to land on the top 10 best list at some point, but I mean, how could it not be? As I reiterated before, I was nervous like you wouldn't believe before witnessing a sequel to a movie that gave me an unforgettable, personal, and relatable impact on my life that I haven't experienced in a theater for quite some time. I prayed that Disney, after its slew of disappointing sequels and its waste of imagination on its live-action remakes, would give me what I have been anticipating for months on end. I have never felt more anxious in my life for a movie since War for the Planet of the Apes. And I have to say that Frozen 2 not only delivered on every way I hoped it would, but I believe it's one of those Disney movies that does animated sequels right. It has one of the most gorgeous animation I have ever seen in my life. Jaw-dropping cinematography with an unreal sense of scale. Side-splitting humor, well-written and powerful songs, along with an enticing, remarkable story filled with narrative sacrifices that goes into emotional routes, expanding upon the complexities, conflicts, and arcs that the characters would have to overcome throughout their journey, especially moments pertaining to a character that I so dearly hold close to my heart. The same way that I feel for one of my favorite characters of all time, Caesar, my favorite female character of all time, bar none, Elsa, as she grows from being one of the most relatable characters that I have ever laid my eyes on and still remains to this day, into a paragon of virtue and sacrifice, risking her life for people she cares about, no matter their banner, allegiance, or clan. And despite not being nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars, which is a piteous freaking shame, Frozen 2 showed itself as the highest grossing animated film to date, and the underrated sequel it truly is. In the film industry and with Hollywood itself, there's always a time where someone or something has to give its one last hurrah or tie itself into a bow into a bittersweet fashion, resulting in an end of an era. And so, after a decade's worth of overarching stories, introductories of solo movies with likable characters, minus Captain Marvel, to give fans and the movie-going audience one last goodbye, and everything that was found endearing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe from the beginning of 2008 finally comes to a close and an end of an era, in the concluding chapter to the Avengers saga, Avengers Endgame. I feel like at this point talking about this film would feel a little bit redundant because What else has been said about Avengers Endgame that already hasn't been addressed? The performances are top to bottom phenomenal, with the highlights being Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., and Josh Brolin owning the screens with their designated characters. The visual effects, the comedy, the score are all superb, even for a superhero film. And the final act of Avengers Endgame is probably one of the finest cinematic moments in the entirety of the MCU, and maybe in movies. Period. Avengers Endgame is the amalgamation of everything that makes a superhero film perfect, and as a result, it's the highest grossing film of all time, beating James Cameron's Avatar. Endgame is one of the best superhero films to come out in years, and it wouldn't have taken the #1 slot if it wasn't for one film that took the crown. I was initially going to review this movie on my channel, but due to the conflicts of scheduling and college... What, you didn't know that pyromancers go to school? I feel like for the sake of this list, I should give a short critique just for you guys. Now, it's common that most moviegoers have been exposed to undeniably awesome war films, particularly ones that have to do with battles and stories that were given by unnamed soldiers during one of the world wars. Like, for example, Hacksaw Ridge, Dunkirk, and the best of the lot being Saving Private Ryan are all examples of this. In every war or battle, no matter when or where it was, there was always a story to tell. Whether it changes our perception of what the war was like for those who haven't lived it, with amazing heroes that will be remembered on for generations, or they could be fictitious, but can still be made to tell fascinating and incredible stories in a Hollywoodized format. And Sam Mendes has set out to do so by creating a film that was loosely based off of the accounts of his grandfather who served during World War I that he told to him as a boy, about a messenger who has a message to opine. And that movie is 1917, the best movie of 2019 and one of the best war movies of the decade. I haven't been moved by any war movie of this caliber since Saving Private Ryan, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, but this has to be Sam Mendes' finest piece of celluloid since Skyfall and American Beauty. 1917's story is emotionally moving and takes war movies to such a resonating and bleak level as we follow our main leads try to deliver a message to cease an attack. The score by Thomas Newman is gripping as always. The performances are sensational. The sound design blazes with ferocity and power. And to say that this movie is technologically impressive wouldn't be kind enough, because this movie in and of itself is an achievement that even some of the great directors of the modern age wouldn't even think of pulling off. The peerless and artistic cinematography and editing to make the whole film feel like a story that is all done within one tracking shot is one of the best I've seen in a long time, to the point of almost being called revolutionary. Everything that this film accomplishes is constructed with the utmost indefatigable commitment and persistence. And if this is the kind of revolutionary turn that such a movie like 1917 would bring to the war genre, then boy, are we in for something truly legendary. I beg of you people, after you finish school, hung out with your friends, finish a shift at your job, take the initiative to go see movies like Avengers Endgame, Frozen 2, The Lighthouse, Ford vs. Ferrari, Parasite, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and of course, 1917. This war film is one for the ages, and it stands as the best film of 2019. And with all that said and done, that is that. Everyone, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity of discussing my top 10 best films of 2019 and my top 10 worst films of 2019. And also, thank you for sticking around on my channel reviewing films with me in 2019. It really means a lot. And I'm being deeply sincere about it because 2019, especially 2018, haven't usually the best when it comes to reviewing films, and mostly because of my channel, as I've been striving to do more things such as making more videos, being as consistent as possible, not risking procrastination, and balancing things outside of my channel. So, with all that said and done when it comes to my channel and the entire film industry as a whole, I hope that 2020 is the year of redemption, and will hopefully bring us into a new decade that will be just as good as the last one. But in any case, if you like this top 10 best list, like and comment down below what are your favorite movies of the year. You'll also find me on media outlets such as Facebook, Twitter, and if you have a phone, possibly find me on Instagram. And as always, if you'd like to see more top 10s and reviews like this, be sure to subscribe for more. Alright, 2020, show us what you got. My name is Luke Nukem. You, my friends, have been blown away.